From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, I want to welcome you to Super Talk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi. Because, as I say every week, we are the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful Super Talk Mississippi Radio Network, or on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV, or you might be watching the show on YouTube or Facebook, or even listening on your favorite podcast. If that's the case, it's August the 28th, 2023. Hey, look, tomorrow is the 18th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Man, time has really flown. And we're celebrating, not celebrating, but I guess looking back on the anniversary as we all watch a tropical system, a very significant tropical system that's forming in the Western Caribbean and the Southern Gulf of Mexico. It's always scary to Mississippians when a storm gets into the Gulf, but in this case, it's headed to Florida, and they anticipate that by the time it gets to make landfall, it's going to be a major hurricane, so it's going to have significant impacts on Florida. So our thoughts and prayers are with our friends there. And if you think about the challenges that they're going to have, man, Mississippians know all too well. Again, 18 years ago, it's hard to get that in your head. For those of us who actually experienced Hurricane Katrina, it seems like yesterday, doesn't it? I was honored to be the president and publisher of the Sun-Herald back when Katrina hit. And we were honored with a Pulitzer Prize, the top award in journalism, for the work that we did covering that worst natural disaster in American history. I also had the opportunity to work really closely with Governor Haley Barbour, and what an incredible leader he was. I was a vice chairman of the tourism effort, the recovery effort, and we had so much to do, as you can imagine, as you know. And then later I had the opportunity to work with Governor Barbour on his book, America's Great Storm, leading through Hurricane Katrina. I'm holding it up here for the YouTube and Facebook and SuperTalk TV audience. But it's a great book that talks a lot about the resiliency of Mississippians and the leadership in the wake of this disaster, which really is a model for the rest of the country. What an experience that was. Again, 18 years. It's hard to get that in your head. I retired back in 2016, and in 2020, I had the opportunity to join SuperTalk, and I still consider myself semi-retired. SuperTalk Outdoors and my other show, the Ricky Mathews Show, is a way for me to stay engaged and a way to give back. And like I say every Monday on this show, I'm really honored to be here. Someone asked me the other day, and for those of you who may be wondering, what makes SuperTalk so effective? Well, as a former media executive, you can imagine I have a point of view about that. But SuperTalk Mississippi Media, which is the parent company for SuperTalk, is really a very unique company in America. I've always been curious about how the digital world was actually impacting the radio industry. And what I've learned since joining SuperTalk, that companies like SuperTalk, and there aren't many of them, are doing very well because they don't see themselves as just a radio company. They see themselves as a multimedia company. While other radio companies really across the United States are getting gobbled up by these big conglomerates. What SuperTalk has done is actually double down on being local. The SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network, for example, is very unique in America, with 12 radio stations that are strategically and geographically located across the state. And then on top of that, they have 14 other radio stations that are of various music genres that are part of SuperTalk Mississippi Media. So when there's news that's made, like, for example, news that is developed by SuperTalk Mississippi News, that effort goes to not only the 26 radio stations that are part of SuperTalk Mississippi Media, but it also goes to an additional 25 radio stations on top of that. So that's 51 radio stations that are part of the SuperTalk News effort. So, for example, when news happens on SuperTalk Outdoors, like our effort to stop the sale and transfer of whitetail deer in Mississippi, news director J.T. Mitchell and his team listen carefully to this show for news stories like that one, and then that news is quickly blanketed across the entire state of Mississippi. That's one of the reasons why legislators and committee chairmen and state leaders and conservation leaders and Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks commissioners and employees and you listen to the show, because we make a difference. I mean, really, that's an incredible business model. and SuperTalk is hitting on a bunch of cylinders. By the way, if you haven't already, you should go to supertalk.fm and download the SuperTalk app. See for yourself the incredible news effort that SuperTalk has built. You can also listen to our shows at the app or at supertalk.fm. These are really great tools. Add to that SuperTalk TV at C-Spire TV, which I say every week, and then YouTube and Facebook and your favorite podcasts, where you can watch or listen to the shows, and it's really a killer business model. And then I should also add to that STMM Digital, which is the best-in-class digital advertising and marketing division of the company. And you get the idea that company owner Steve Davenport and President Kim Dillon have created a company that is built to last. Really has. So that's why SuperTalk Mississippi is so effective. It is a force to be reckoned with. By the way, the views on my show are mine, not those of the foundation when it comes to the outdoors and outdoors issues. You can count on me to say what needs to be said, and I'm really honored to be here. Listen, I want to pay my respects to Representative Mac Huddleston, who passed away. This is a tweet from Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. He said, Mac Huddleston was exemplary in every aspect as a decorated war hero, trusted legislator, veterinarian, and family man, scrupulously honest and straightforward. Mac Huddleston was a friend and will be missed. Lynn and I are in the prayers for his family. So, yes, it's really unfortunate, and our thoughts and prayers go to his family. So now let's move on to my first guest. So kind of a regular here on SuperTalk Outdoors, my friend Ryan Jones, who is a fisheries bureau assistant director and someone who we really enjoy talking to about fisheries. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well. How about yourself, Ricky?
I'm doing really good. Hey, listen, before we chatted on the air, we had a quick discussion about how recently you hit a piece of metal or something in the highway and blew two tires out and put a hole in your oil pan. And I just want to say, man, I'm glad your family's okay.
That's right. Yeah, we were down in the middle of nowhere on Highway 98, and so they just poured all of the motor oil out on the side of the road. So we had to turn off the vehicle and just go sit in the shade on the side of the road till we could get somebody to get the vehicle back to Hattiesburg.
And it was hot, wasn't it, my friend?
It was hot. It was hot.
Yeah, we hit a record down here on the coast, quite a number of degrees higher than the existing record over the weekend. And then we got some rain, thank God. Rained pretty heavy yesterday afternoon. And then we had huge thunderstorms offshore today, and some of those kind of lingered into Biloxi. It wasn't heavy, but we got a nice steady sprinkle. I tell you, it's great to see that this time of year. I'm okay with a little bit of rain, a little bit of thunderstorm. I don't like lightning, but I hate hurricanes. And let's pray that the next 2 months we don't face what Florida's about to face. Man, I feel for those people, don't you?
Absolutely. It's tough.
So Ryan, in your responsibilities for fisheries really across the state, when you think about heat can play havoc on ponds and water sources across the state, can it?
That's right. It can create, very stressful conditions for fish, especially late summer, like that. Just the physical properties of water. When water is a lot warmer, it doesn't hold as much oxygen in it, dissolved in it. So, when it gets, the hotter it gets, the more stressful it gets because it's just not as much oxygen for fish to pull out of the water.
And when that happens, you have fish kills.
That's right. That's a possibility too. We've had a long time through August where we don't have any rain, and ponds here in Mississippi do something called stratify. So it's basically two different layers of water sitting on top of each other, where it could be a cold lower layer that can either have no oxygen or little oxygen, and then the upper layer will be warmer but will actually have oxygen. But what happens is when those two layers mix, there's not enough oxygen to support life, and it can result in fish kills oftentimes this time of year. And like you said, those hurricanes, these big rains that we have after having no rain for a long period of time can cause those turnover events, where you'll lose some fish in your fish population there.
Well, I can only imagine. So when you kind of put your radar out over the state of Mississippi, are you hearing many reports of fish kills?
Yeah, this time of year is pretty common for small impoundments to have a fish kill. You know, the more deep water you have, the more susceptible you are to that turnover because you just have that larger area down there that will just have low oxygen. You know, and result in reducing the overall oxygen if it does mix. You know, so there's some other reasons for fish kills as well. Like in the springtime, if we get a lot of water exchange, fish have to regulate their bodies so that they can breed. And so if you get a lot of water exchange coming, it changes the chemical properties of that water. You know, to breathe, they have to continue to regulate that, and so they can get stressed, and it can result in a fish kill as well.
When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Ryan Jones.
It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews on Super Talk, Mississippi.
As we listen to my friend Steve Azar, One Mississippi, the theme song for Super Talk Outdoors and the new state song for Mississippi. Steve is such an amazing guy. What a dude. I had Marty Stewart on my other show, the Ricky Mathews show, the other day, and he couldn't say enough good things about Steve. He said he's never met a nicer guy. By the way, I've never met a nicer guy than Steve and Marty Stewart. What a thrill it was to spend some time with him. We've got Ryan Jones, who's with Fisheries Bureau as part of the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And when we went to break, we're talking about how when you have a lot of heat and not a lot of rain, then there's a stratification that happens in the water. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe some things you can do to stop that. And also, if you do get a fish kill, what do you do? But Ryan, what else do you want to say sort of about the stratification of water?
Well, we were touching on the high water, like in the spring, which really is a source of a fish kill that's not associated with stratification. It's just when you get so much water over and over and over again from those heavy spring rains, it changes that water chemistry over again and again, and those fish have to regulate their bodies so they can breed. And sometimes they end up not producing as much mucus or that slime coat that they have when they're getting ready to spawn or something like that. And so as soon as that happens, they start getting bacterial infections, and you can see some fish kills associated with that. Another thing we'll see, later in the year is cyanobacteria. So the blue-green algae kills. A lot of times, if you have a lot of nutrients coming in, you'll see blue-green algae blooms, and what happens is those individual blue-green algae cells, when they die and break open, there's toxicity in there, and so if they all died a lot at the same time, you can see some fish dying for that reason. A lesser known cause would be chemicals. You know, typically that's not seen, to be honest. A lot of times people will spray weeds or something on their shoreline, and they think the chemical may have killed them. But as if they did it this time of year, and you treat so many weeds at one time, those weeds actually break down a lot of bacteria, use oxygen in the process of decomposition, and you can result in a fish kill and low dissolved oxygen associated with that as well.
Right. I've got a friend of mine who has a bunch of cattle. They're in Stone County, and they also have a lot of pines nearby. So if you go a long stretch without rain, and then suddenly it rains, because you've pointed out before that having pines near a pond or a lake can really create some needs in that lake from a nutrition point of view. But if you suddenly get a lot of rain, and whatever is on the ground from the cattle, and then of course the pines, and that suddenly flows into the lake, how big of a problem is that?
I tell you, one of the bigger issues is these cow ponds that have around these pastures where people scattered the chicken litter, and they're trying to grow the grass for their cows, but when we have big rains and it flushes it into their little watering hole for their cows, it'll actually get so nutrient rich that you have those cyanobacteria blooms, and results in fish kill when it all kind of blows over in one corner. So oftentimes it's just too much nutrients.
Hey, what can you do about, let's just, on that one particularly, what can you do about it?
So aerating is your best bet, it's just to keep those keep it mixed all the time. You don't ever allow it to stratify, and that will create more habitat for those fish to use. Instead of having to use just this one little layer of the water body, they can use the entire water column there to survive through this stressful period.
And then, as you and I have discussed before, when you have a situation like I was just describing around, having ponds nearby or cattle or whatever, is there a role, when you test the water? Certainly, there's a role for lime. Maybe you probably don't want to put more fertilizer in a situation like that. But what would you find in a pond like that you would need to do to get it right in terms of balance?
It's typically nutrient related, so discontinuing your fertilization program is really number one, or trying to reduce the input of nutrients. That's always going to be your first go-to. But if it happens, you can always contact us. We provide technical guidance for these circumstances, and so just kind of try to get an idea of the different types of the different species of fish. If it's bass, brim, and catfish, are they small fish, are they big fish, and like just an estimated number of fish to provide our field biologists with a little bit more information to help you out. A lot of times it's the larger individuals that will suffer during this period because they need more oxygen, and so you'll be left with still some younger fish that can just grow back out. It's not the end of the world. It just may back you up. You may lose some advanced sized fish, but it'll come back.
So if someone has a fish kill, walk out to their prize lake or pond and suddenly they've got dead fish floating on top, what do they do? What do they do about that?
Like I said, if you can get them out, get them out, because the more organic material is decomposing in there, the worse the problem can get. So kind of getting them out and try to bury them somewhere so it doesn't smell up everything. But like I said, the aerator is a good preventer. And then outside of that, you just want to kind of figure out how many did you lose? Is it necessary to restock or not? And our field biologists can help with that kind of thing.
You get a lot of calls this time of year?
We do. Fish kills are very prevalent, really July through September.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting. So, hey, what are you up to these days besides dealing with the issue we're talking about? What's life like at the Fisheries Bureau?
Well, I got to catch up because I've been in Colorado for the last week trying to learn how to manage federal aid grants. So I've been trying to wrap my head around the grants world, and so when we get through with the show, I got to go back over there and see what all I've missed out on.
Well, you've got field duties that you have this, as part of your deal. You got some administrative duties that you have as well, don't you?
I'm more administrative now, since in July is when I started as assistant director. So I'm more managing bureau operations and coordinating the federal aid aspect of the.
How often are you able to get out in the field?
I would like to. I haven't been getting in the field a whole lot. I would like to get in there, once a month or something like that. But it's super busy here at headquarters and keeping the train on track. So at this point in time, I gotta let my field guys handle the field.
Well, I tell you, I've had the opportunity to meet many of them here on this show. You've got a great team around you, don't you?
Absolutely, for sure.
So, what when you look at your team, besides their dedication, the fact that they're really well trained, what's the magic that makes it all come together?
Yeah, it's just a passion for the outdoors that they have, So, all of them kind of grew up like me, utilizing the resource, and so they all want to see everybody have that same opportunity they have, So I think that's what makes it tick, to be honest.
Ryan, as we approach the opening of dove season, is this something that you'll be taking advantage of?
Yeah, I hope to get out there with my boy. I know we're going to have to figure out the schedules with all all the ball. It's like it's opening day. Why are we playing so much ball on opening day? But we're going to try to make that happen. Hopefully, it's still waiting on some schedules to come in.
Hey, I did that for a lot of years, man. Woo! I missed out on many. Had 3 kids, and they were in baseball and soccer, and you name it. You know how it goes.
I got 3 boys. So the youngest is 4, and I'm going to be coaching him. His first practices this evening.
Yeah.
So we got a full slate: baseball and soccer and little beehive ball coming up soon.
Well, listen, our dove field up in the Delta is on where several thousand acres of corn was planted. And then in the middle of it, he planted some sunflower seeds, and sunflowers are growing just incredibly well. And I got a video yesterday. In fact, and I've never seen so many dove flying in this field. It's just incredible. So hopefully it's going to be a good hunt, and I'm hearing good reports across the state. But that's such a wonderful social. I talk a lot of times about duck hunting being this great social sport, but dove hunting is sort of the ultimate social sport, isn't it?
That's right, and that was my favorite, growing up. And so, obviously, anybody listening that has a young boy or girl out there, get them out there in the field and let them try it, man. Because I know that was my favorite when I was growing up is dove hunting. So. I hope everybody, takes time to get the youth out there and get them started.
It was my favorite too, with a 870 Wingmaster, and we drive from the coast up to West Point. That's one of the areas we like to dove hunt. Long drive, but man, so many great memories from that. And I know you've got great memories too. And you're right.
That's right.
Great way to get kids out. Excuse me, get kids out in the outdoors. But anyway, Ryan, it's been a pleasure catching up with you, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you, Ricky.
You bet. This has been Ryan Jones from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. Listen, during the break, I pulled up the Weather Channel, and they're wall to wall now on Idalia as that storm comes together, the storm I talked about at the beginning of the show. But all the experts believe, the National Hurricane Center in particular, that it's going to be a major hurricane when it makes landfall in Florida. And boy, I tell you what, it's an interesting feeling you have, given that the 18th anniversary of Katrina is tomorrow. And here we are watching the storm enter the Gulf. It's a very, very different feeling when that storm's going to Florida as opposed to when that storm's headed to you. Because especially when you live on the water, you got to get boats out of the water. You got to prepare piers. There's so much work to do. It's like you go into this fight or flight syndrome, and it's just pure preparation. And then, of course, there's the aftermath and all of that, man. I mean, I don't wish that on anyone. But, boy, my thoughts and prayers are with the people of Florida as this thing barrels toward the coast of Florida. And let's hope that it doesn't hit Tampa, or that Tampa doesn't get extreme storm surge. Because, as I said on my show on the coast, the Ricky Mathews show, the thing I worry most about is when something hits a major metropolitan area like Tampa. It has a tremendous reverberating impact on the insurance markets across America. It really does. Very, very significant. But it's a little spooky watching the Weather Channel go wall to wall on a storm. Okay, now let's shift gears and move over to my friend Major Chris Clark. And we've had him on the show before, back in June. In fact, we talked about Operation Dry Water and some other stuff as well. But before we go any further, let me just check with Chris and see how you doing, my friend.
Doing good.
Good. Where are you sitting today?
At the Central Region office at Turcotte.
Yeah. How you been? What's going on in your life these days?
Well, we've been busy. We got boating season kind of wrapping up a little bit. It still goes on as warm as it is, but got dove season coming up and a lot of hunter education classes that we're teaching and getting ready.
Yeah, we Ryan Jones and I were just talking about the dove season coming. I got a video from a friend of mine showing. I mean, where the dove field is. It's on a power line where they planted sunflower seeds, and there was several, probably 1,000 acres of corn that had just recently been harvested. And the number of dove in the video that I saw, holy mackerel, man, it was just incredible. But it will be interesting to see how this season is. I know that probably some people, they didn't have irrigation, they had trouble getting a field to grow. But you getting any reports?
A lot of people, just like you said, are cutting their crops. So a lot of guys are seeing doves. One thing they hadn't worried about is since they didn't have rain, or trying to set their fields up. So it's a lot of people ready. They've been moving around these last few weeks.
I know they are. Hey, listen, of course, I live on the water in coastal Mississippi, so I see boating, really picking up for us this time of year. Of course, with Labor Day weekend coming, a lot of people are going to be going to the islands, assuming the weather's cooperative. I went over the weekend to visit some family members. My cousin's 50th wedding anniversary was being celebrated, and we stayed with him at his lake house on Logan Martin. And I saw the same thing I see down here all the time. Jet skis, first of all, jet skis are as fast as they've ever been. I mean, I don't know, some of them probably go 60 plus miles per hour. And the bass boats, my goodness, man, bass boats have these, supercharged 300s on the back of them, and they're going by at 70 miles per hour. When you think about it, we're lucky we don't have more major accidents, aren't we?
Absolutely. And it goes back to the operators just paying a little bit of attention and taking that little bit of more time. If they're going into a curve or I know they're out there enjoying themselves, but they still got to be watching and paying attention to what's going on.
You know what I see a lot of, buddy? I see a lot of kids on these really fast jet skis, and they don't have the maturity or the hours on the water to really appreciate how quickly it could turn south. Is that a concern you have too?
Yes, sir. And that's the reason we try to do in our boating classes, try to stress to them that, how much anything can happen. And if you take for granted what you got that power you got under you and don't respect it, anything can happen. And when it does, it's a little too late.
Yeah, it really is, man. You don't often get a second chance when there's a boating accident. Well, last time we talked, we as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Operation Dry Water was underway, and that's a big effort where they check boats during the 4th of July weekend. How did that go?
It went very well. Got several BUIs in different parts of the state and got some folks off the water. A lot of people doing the right thing, getting drivers, getting somebody else to drive their boat, which we appreciate that. That's still accomplishing the goal.
Some of the worst accidents that have happened here in coastal Mississippi over many, many, many years, the majority of them usually involved an intoxicated driver of the boat. And gosh, that's sad to think about it, because all they had to do, man, is turn the wheel over to someone who had not been drinking. But there's just something about boating and drinking that people think mix when it really doesn't mix. And you encounter this constantly, don't you?
Yes, sir. Not respecting the water. I mean, it's unforgiving. Just because it looks pretty and slick out there, and people go get on a sandbar or get in the water and enjoy their beverages and stuff, and don't realize all the other factors that's working on them. The heat, the beating around in that boat, all that matters.
Okay, so look, you guys encounter someone who's been drinking. What's the process you go through to confirm a boating under the influence violation?
Well, all our officers have been certified in standard seated sobriety, which they can do in a boat. And if they detect what they think is a cause to go ahead and go through that process, they offer the operator to take the test. Operator doesn't have to, but if they so do, they get the opportunity to prove that they're not intoxicated. And then once they go through that process, if they fail the test, then they will take them in and put them on the 8,000 and book them from there. Yeah,
I've seen that's a situation where a boater is being escorted back to the boat launch. And it's not a pleasant process, is it?
No, sir. You just like hunting or anything else, the people out there enjoying themselves. They think they not bothering anybody else, but they also putting somebody in danger by taking that chance.
It is incredible. You know, the thing about it is, and I guess most people with, they're just pure common sense, that in boating, when that moment happens, it requires sometimes split-second decisions. And if you're impaired in any way, it's not just alcohol, but impaired in any way, you're not able to make the right decision. And oftentimes, rarely are boaters in the boat by themselves. So if someone's operating a boat, usually there are other people in the boat with them. And man, when you say things can turn bad rapidly, you have seen the worst, haven't you?
Yes, sir. And nobody realizes it until you out there helping a small child or something. You getting that, was just out there trying to have fun and got caught up in an accident.
Yeah, so so y'all keep a lot of stats on that. How are we doing in this state as far as boating accidents are concerned?
Right now, we pretty much are average what we had the last couple of years. We've had a couple of fatalities. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's kind of been like the same thing. A lot of people on the water. It's been super hot, so there's more people just staying on the water, and we've got places that we've worked real hard, and we've got officers that know the people they're working with, and there's people on the sandbars that's taking people back and forth to the vehicles and making sure they got somebody to drive them. So it's working.
There's a lot that goes into that, and as long as you do a little pre-planning, that's the key. I don't have any big drinkers in my family, thank God. But when, if we were to go somewhere and people have one or two, we just don't let them get back in the car and drive. We certainly don't let them drive the boat. I mean, what harm does it do to be extra careful?
Absolutely.
So when you're teaching kids, though, how graphic do you get? I mean, do you share experience with them? Talk to me about that.
Well, each class is different. You kind of got to go by the youngest person that's in there. You got to teach to their level where they can understand something. And you may go into some of those stories and you get their attention that way. I don't try to go into some of the gruesome details, but at the same time, try to make them realize the consequences of neglecting their responsibility once they get on a vessel.
It's a tough deal. I'm a former paramedic, so I've seen the situations like you're talking about, and so many of those were incredibly preventable, and the people who were involved in those incidences, they had to live with that the rest of their lives, and it's just a terribly unpleasant thing. A wonderful day on the water can turn south so fast it'll make your head spin, and you have to live with the consequences the rest of your life. That's why you have to put safety first in everything that you do. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Major Chris Clark. He's a law enforcement manager for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and we'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. Listen, I say it just about every week, but I love having, and not just love, I'm honored to have the opportunity to celebrate so many amazing people, both inside this Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, Parks, and outside the department. So many people who are dedicated to conservation and just enjoying the outdoors. I've got some upcoming guests that you're really going to enjoy. People who have who just sort of made their way in life by mastering the outdoors, and we'll be talking more about them as we go forward. But today, in the second half of the show, I've got Major Chris Clark. He's a law enforcement manager. We were just talking about boating under the influence and boating safely and all of that. But let's shift gears now, if you don't mind, Chris, and talk a little bit more about we've got dove season about to start. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, what a great social opportunity that is for families to come together. All this, they've been doing it, passing it down from one generation to the next. Everybody coming together on that dove field, and then afterwards cleaning the birds and cooking the birds and just enjoying time together. I know that dads and granddaddies and others are just preaching safety during that whole process. But let's just, for people who just need a reminder, let's talk about hunter safety as it relates to dove season specifically.
Absolutely. Biggest thing is know where it target's at, know what's behind that target. dove hunting, you got birds that's trying to fly in. Don't shoot at a low bird. This is a great opportunity for tons of kids to get out with their families. They get to do a lot of shooting most of the time, and that's what gets them involved, and it makes them think that this is a cool thing, that they want to do. But at the same time, you got to make sure what they're shooting in the right direction. They know what's around them. One thing we run across when the officer's out there checking them is we'll come up and we're going to ask, we're going to check the gun. Well, some people, first thing they do, they're going to check to unload their gun, but they're going to stick the barrel on the end of their foot to dig out their license. And that's the first thing we tell them, look, just hand me the gun, I'll hold it for you. Just simple things you got to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. One of the things we talked about last week is that you can get excited and forget you have a shell in the chamber. I mean, you wouldn't think that would be, you think that people would not take that chance whatsoever. But man, it happens all the time. Just not, if you're going to handle that gun and you're not hunting with it, you got to unload it. That's the first thing you got to do is unload it. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, always. And a lot of the people we come up on when we're going to check them, they'll unload the gun before they hand it to us, and that's what we want. I let them unload it and hand it to us where we know it's an unloaded gun, and when I hand them back, it's the same way. I tell them right quick, don't forget I didn't load it, so you see a bird, don't get mad at me that you didn't have a shell in it. But the other thing too is those pellets are falling. So we get calls every year about that they're peppering a house or something, that pellets are falling on. You got to be aware and be respectful to the neighbors, to other people. And we hope this weekend that we won't have any issues and have a safe weekend with it.
So it's kind of an all hands hit deck weekend for the department, isn't it?
Yes, sir. You got that going on. You got alligator season still going on, and we'll still be working water whether anybody realizes it or not.
I saw that post. A new record alligator over 14 feet was killed over the weekend. Man, that was a big alligator.
Yes, sir. And if you read up on it, it was actually captured, I think, in 2005, and they released it. So it'll amaze you how much they grow.
It really is. There's really no doubt about that, man. Alligators, alligator seasons and alligator management is a real one of the real best practices in America, the way we've handled that here, having the alligator division of the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And I've enjoyed getting to know the efforts underway to make sure that we have that resource for many years to come. And people really enjoy doing that, don't they?
Yes, sir. It's kind of like the dove season. It's a lot of people that gets involved in it in a boat. Everybody kind of feels like they involved doing it. Everybody wants that great big one, but it takes a while to get that. But it's good. It gets people started, get them outside doing something a little different. I call it kind of the changing of the year, far as what we do. It's always something evolving and something else for somebody to do if they want to try it.
Already we're getting ready for deer season, or at least planning our work weekends. And at our place, we got 2 new food plots we want to make. Usually we would have already done that, but man, it's been so hot. I can't even imagine getting out there and doing work to make those food plots, and as thick as it is, as hot as it is. But then the issue is going to be is if there's too much rain, we can't get to where we want to make them. But a lot of work to do. Ordering seeds as we speak from my friend Spike Crawford. We're going to place that order today, for a matter of fact. And it's the seasonality of enjoyment of the outdoors. That's what it's all about. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure to catch up with my friend.
Yes, sir.
So this has been Major Chris Clark, Law Enforcement Manager for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. As I always say, stay safe when you're in the outdoors. Always put safety first. God bless you, and we will see you next Monday.